Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Bhagavad Gita class, the most awaited portion, at least I'm sure for many devotees and for me as well, of the 7th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Very, very, very important chapter. We will start with the Mangalacharan prayers. Welcome to all of you. And today's, as always, but special request, please pay very, very careful attention, especially in the beginning portion. It will set the whole context of how to understand the 7th chapter. And in fact, not just the 7th chapter, but the entire Bhakti section, which is the next 6 chapters, 7 to 12. So I will sort of set the whole framework in the beginning so that you can approach it in the proper way. Before that, so please keep your books handy, put aside everything else if possible, and pay very careful attention. We will start with the Mangalacharan prayers. I will share my screen. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine
Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Tarini Om Ajnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasvai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Yuta Padakamalam
Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam
Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vidamscha
He Krishna
Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhobhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhya Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Please mute yourself if possible. Okay. So, chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita. And this is called Knowledge of the Absolute. Or knowledge and absolute is Krishna, so knowledge about Krishna. So that is the title of the chapter. So this chapter, and in fact this whole section of Bhagavad Gita, is the Bhakti section. So far we have been talking about Nishkama Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga. At the end of the 6th chapter, Lord Krishna mentions strongly that among all the yogis, the one who is the best is the Bhakti Yogi. Shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktah tamo mataha. So yukta tama means the most or the best engaged yogi is among all of them, yoginam api sarvesham, is Shraddhavan bhajate yoma. With Shraddha, one does bhajan. So, with Shraddha, one does bhajan. So one does bhajan. So the word does is a verb. It is about doing. So it is about action. And with Shraddha is consciousness. It's not a verb. I don't think, I'm not a very big linguist. It's not even a noun. It's a state of being, having faith. So with consciousness, so this is internal and this is external. Internally, one must have the faith in Krishna, and externally one does bhajan of Krishna. This is the meaning of Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam. That is the one who is best engaged in Krishna consciousness. So then the question arises that who is Krishna in reality? Or who is Krishna? Well, answer is that he is God, or he is the supreme person, the Param Atma or Param Purusha. These words have been used before, but who is he in more details? So, and how to do bhajan. So who is he and how to do bhajan? These are the questions that are being answered in chapter 7. And Lord Krishna says that he will answer these questions fully. So how to do, who is Krishna and how to do bhajan? So this chapter will cover, first of all, please now pay very careful attention. This is the important part that I was going to cover. This chapter gives the sort of the breakdown of the chapter is that verse numbers 1 to 13, or I should say 4 to 13, Lord Krishna will give the theoretical understanding of who he is. The theoretical understanding, and I will explain, break it down further, but that is the theoretical understanding. So you will know, okay, this is who is Krishna. But later on, from 14 to approximately 20, almost I can say to 30, Lord Krishna will give the practical understanding, or you can say practical knowledge. So practical knowledge of how to approach Krishna, and how to also will include how not to. That is very important. If you are in some uncharted territory, it is good to know how to reach somewhere. But think about it. So this is some deep philosophy. This is not just some random shallow stuff. So please listen very, very carefully. I have thought about this. I have read a lot of stuff about this. So this is sort of the crystallized understanding of what I'm saying. So there is some depth in this. Please don't treat it in a trivial way. To go somewhere in a completely uncharted territory where you have very little assistance. Today's world has a lot of knowledge about math, science, how to make money, all those things. But how to find God, there is very little knowledge. So this is uncharted territory, and it also helps to know where to go. But if you take a wrong turn, it is also very useful to know where not to go. So if you are going on in some area, it says, okay, the next thing you will find is a a coffee shop. After that, you will find a grocery store. But if you find a, I don't know, a school, then you have taken the wrong turn. Go back till you find the coffee shop. So it's always useful to know where to go and where not to go, so that you can backtrack and come back on track. So that is one thing. How to approach Krishna. Krishna will give practical knowledge, but it is still knowledge. And this is the first one, is theoretical understanding or knowledge. So that is why, whether it is practical or theoretical, it is still knowledge. That is one of the main points I want to mention, which means that Krishna will give theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge. End of the day, it is all knowledge. Krishna is not going to act for you. The action has to be yours. So the practical knowledge is available, what to do. Think of it like a science class. You are taught the theory. Here is all the theory. Let's say you are doing a experiment on a pendulum, one of my favorite experiments, where you have to swing a pendulum and measure the time period. From that, you can, derive the value of g, or small acceleration due to gravity, or whatever it is. So first of all, the teacher will teach you what is acceleration of gravity, how pendulum swings, all that stuff. Then he will tell you the knowledge about how to carry out the experiment. You take a stand, you take a string, tie it to the pin, put a little bob, a heavy bob at the bottom that becomes a pendulum, give it a small swing, don't give it a large swing, because of the small angle approximation. Otherwise, large angle approximation kind of messes up your measurements. And then measure 10 times so that your average of errors is reduced. And all that is the practical knowledge of how to carry out the experiment. But then you have to go in the lab and do the experiment yourself. That part, the teacher always leaves it to you. And of course, when you are stuck in doing the experiment, then you can get help as to where you are doing wrong, or what's going wrong, where you are taking missteps. But you have to do the experiment. So all this is about knowledge, whether the knowledge is the theoretical knowledge or the practical knowledge. It is still knowledge. And that is what this chapter will give. What does that mean? Why am I stressing on it? The reason I'm stressing on it is that the theoretical knowledge, or let me not say that, the knowledge about Krishna will come from chapter number 7. Definitely the knowledge about Krishna will come. If you hear it with faith, that yes, this is true, the knowledge will come. However, the love for Krishna, that is not something this 7th chapter will arouse fully. It will begin to arouse the love for Krishna. But the love for Krishna, which is basically the result of doing the practical application of bhakti, this is the result. The love for Krishna will come only after you practice, or another word, nice word for this is train yourself in bhakti. So this is something that is not within scope of chapter 7. Okay, not that practice comes This will come. This part will come only after you have practiced bhakti, practiced your sadhana. And sadhana means shravana plus kirtana. You have to practice and train yourself in sadhana. Shravana means hearing. What hearing? Hearing the name, glories, pastimes. Pastimes means the leelas or the stories, you can say, of Krishna. And kirtana means repeating those with your mouth. So that is the practical aspect that you have to do, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. Do sadhana over a sustained period of time. Then that love for Krishna will evoke within your heart. Absolutely, it will evoke. And you will get the practical understanding of who is Krishna. This will lead to a practical, not the knowledge, but the understanding. Once you do the experiment, you will get the right values. And the more seriously you do it, like I said last time, if the graph is supposed to be a straight line, you will not get like this. Not like that. Your points, your result will be more like this. It will look like a straight line, which means you will get the expected result. So the practical result or the practical realization will come once you do sadhana over a sustained period of time. So please remember this, that practical application of what is going to be said here in this chapter is going to be very, very important. Just by Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that just by eating one handful of food when you are hungry does not satisfy your hunger. You have to eat many handfuls of food. And once you eat sufficient number of handfuls of food, then you feel completely satisfied. Your hunger goes away. Just by eating one handful, if you expect, oh, my hunger should go away, that is not possible. So it will take time. And so many people will just hear this chapter. So I am basically explaining some things that, so if you remember, I said the knowledge of Krishna starts from the 4th chapter. This I said here in 4 to 13 is the theoretical knowledge. Then what is from 1 to 3? Even Lord Krishna is explaining from 1 to 3 this same thing that I am explaining, but he's explaining very briefly, very quickly, because Bhagavad Gita is condensed, very condensed knowledge, and we are doing a more detailed, slow sort of good understanding, deeper understanding, for our untrained minds. So Lord Krishna is also saying the same thing in these 3 verses. So many people will come, they will say, I have heard chapter 7, but nothing happened. And 5 months, 6 months after attending the Bhagavad Gita class or reading Bhagavad Gita, they will nowhere to be seen, back into the sense gratification world. That's fine. At least they heard Bhagavad Gita, they read it once in their life. That itself is phenomenal accomplishment. But at the same time, at some level, it is also a waste, because you read this wonderful knowledge and you didn't apply it. And therefore, the result of the knowledge was not obtained. You read a book, for example, How to Get Rich, but you didn't invest in the proper places what the book suggested. You won't get the returns, you won't become rich. Here we are talking about spiritual richness, of course. So, so they drift away and they will say nothing happened, and Bhagavad Gita, yeah, I read, but nothing happened. And it is at some level counterproductive, because the next time it will reinforce their thought that, oh, all these things are just books. Nothing happens. I read it, nothing happens. No result happens. I have read Bhagavad Gita, nothing happened. There is no incentive or impetus to read it again. And there are other people who read Bhagavad Gita, they try what Krishna is telling, they train and practice, and then they never leave it. They make lifelong commitment to it. And year after year, they just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. So there are those as well. So of course, the latter category is a little smaller in volume than the former. There are more people who drift away than who stay, but that's okay. Your job is to choose where you want to be. And of course, my invitation, my request is that you be in the latter category, which means you try and you stick to it, to the teachings of Lord Krishna, and you apply them throughout the rest of your life. So try to be in that category. That is my invitation. Of course, you have to choose where you want to be. So this is a very important point, that the result will be proportional to how sincerely you apply the teachings. And the way to apply the teachings is to train, train, train. I could keep writing it. Train yourself, train yourself. What is the meaning of training? Training means do it even if you don't like it. That is called training. Remember the jaundice and the sugar candy example given by Sri Rupa Goswami, that when you have jaundice, the medicine itself appears bitter, even though the medicine is sweet. So train yourself, start small, but don't leave, keep at it. You know the meaning of training. So this is no different. This is what Krishna calls as abhyas. We have called it practice, we have called it training, it is abhyas. So abhyas of bhakti is also very important. Krishna will say it very directly in chapter 12. We will come there in a few weeks. So you must train yourself, and then you will get the juice, the result of chapter 7. Next point, that you must. So this chapter will start from the 4th verse to the 13th verse. We get knowledge about Krishna. Who is Krishna? Knowledge about Krishna. Krishna will tell his knowledge in these, how many these verses are? 10. 4 to 13 is 10 verses. Krishna will summarize who he is. And the essence of who Krishna is, and he will say many, 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 many times, I am this, I am this, I am this. He will say basically, I am the supreme, I am the sustainer, I am the father of this whole universe. Everything comes from me. And to somebody, so a key aspect of this is one who is devoted to Krishna, how he listens. How he will listen, and one who is not devoted to Krishna, how he will listen to this, to these 10 verses, 4 to 13. There is a huge difference in these two listenings, because Krishna is going to tell about him. He is not going to lie. He is not going to be artificially humble, that even though he is the Supreme Lord, he is not going to say, I am your servant. To a very, very, very close associate, to a very close friend or a devotee, he will say, I am your servant. He said that to Arjuna, that I will become your charioteer, your driver, which is like a servant's job. But that is because Arjuna is a very, very close, deep friend of Krishna. But here, for all of us, he is, and to explain who he is, even to Arjuna, he is telling, I am the Supreme Lord. So there can be two ways of listening. One way of listening, which will apply to, so let me change the color, one who is devoted, oh, sorry. one who is not devoted to Krishna, he will hear, or he could hear, that Krishna is boasting about himself. He is too proud. That is how you can approach. He is arrogant. He is trying to subdue me, or what should I say, oppress, suppress, or oppress everyone else. Like a familiar phrase used is God with a gun. God with a gun. That if you don't surrender to me, I will punish you. So that is the feeling that one could get. One who is devoted to Krishna, I will put this in a different color. So this is the how somebody who will hear or listen to this. One who is devoted to Krishna is, my Krishna or my Father is so great. I remember when I was a small child, every child, please try to remember when you were small children, even though there are many older devotees on the call and many younger ones. Remember when you were in a group of children, didn't you always say, oh, my father is so and so, my father is this, my father is that? I also remember I used to lie about my father. Oh, my father, he's a big scientist, and very big scientist in this company. Even though he was a small scientist, I used to say he's very big, he's this, he's that, like that, isn't it? So when you love someone and you hear about the greatness of someone, you are not jealous, you're not envious, you're just filled with happiness. You're filled with a different kind of pride that, yes, this great person is mine. He loves me, I love him. There is a relationship of love between us, and the more great he is, the more happy I am. So that is how a devotee would hear about Krishna when he will say, I am the source of this whole universe. This whole universe is coming from me. I am sustaining it. There is absolutely nothing in this whole universe that is not connected with me. So don't, when you are hearing this, so what is the point of this? When you need to choose where you are and how you will listen to verses number 4 to 13. Will you listen to it like, why is Krishna so arrogant? Or, I am also very great at my level. Everybody is a king of his own house. So what if you are the richest person? In my house, I am the richest person. You get out of my house. In my house, don't come and tell me that you are great. Okay, you can tell you are great wherever else you want. In my house, I call myself great, and there the matter ends. That is your arrogance. So don't let your arrogance and your pride come in the way of understanding how great Krishna is. Don't try to be an equal to Krishna. And when Krishna says, please take my shelter, come under my shelter, then you will be happy. Don't feel like I am very independent. Why do I need to take his shelter to be happy? I can be happy on my own efforts, on my own strength. All these are pride, our ahankar is what is fueling those feelings. Don't be in this category. And that brings us to another point, that some initial Shraddha is necessary or a prerequisite to understand, not only understand, but appreciate the bhakti section. Bhakti section means chapters 7 to 12. Some initial Shraddha is needed. And Shraddha means faith. Shraddha and sadhana are iterative. How is it iterative? Because you have to start with some faith. So the starting point in this, you can say it's chicken and egg. Which came first? Okay, it is definitely chicken and egg. There is no first. For you, choose whichever one and jump on the iterative cycle. Start with faith or start with sadhana, doesn't matter. Start somewhere. The purpose is to get into the iterative cycle. Let me explain, what does the iterative cycle mean? Iterative cycle means that with some faith, you start your sadhana. So you have been coming to this class for so many months. I can understand you have some faith. You have some interest. You see some benefit awaiting you. Otherwise, why will you waste 2 hours on a Friday evening every week? So there is some faith, you are coming. Now take the next step of doing sadhana. I hope you all understand what is sadhana, Shravana and Kirtana. Sincerely, every day, try to read Srimad Bhagavatam. Try to understand everything Krishna is saying in Bhagavatam. That would be wonderful sadhana in the mood of Shravana. And do 15 minutes of Kirtana. If you don't know any nice Krishna bhajan, just Hare Krishna bhajan is the Maha Mantra bhajan is enough. For 15-20 minutes, do Kirtana. Sincerely, not like a rote or a mechanically. So that is sadhana. What will happen when you do the sadhana? Krishna will reciprocate. Definitely Krishna will reciprocate. Obviously, you have to keep your eyes and ears open. Krishna will absolutely reciprocate. Absolutely, I guarantee you. That will increase your faith. It will reinforce your faith. Aha, there is value in this. It works. It is not some humbug, bogus process. And then your faith will increase and you will do more stronger or sincere sadhana, serious. You will become more serious in your sadhana, and then Krishna will reciprocate more. And therefore, this virtuous cycle will keep going on. And you will become a very, very good Krishna Bhakta. So faith and sadhana are iterative. And wherever you start, doesn't matter. Just jump on this cycle. Today you are doing sadhana without faith, fine. Do sadhana, be open to Krishna's reciprocation, which will build the faith. You have faith, but you are not doing sadhana, take up some sadhana. Even mechanically, when you take up sadhana, Krishna will reciprocate. That will build your faith. Okay. So either way, if you have been doing sadhana, be open to Krishna's reciprocation. Here for it. Be open to it. Keep your eyes and ears and radars open. It will reinforce or increase your faith. If you have faith but not doing sadhana, add sadhana to it. And by adding sadhana, you will see Krishna's reciprocation, which will further increase your faith. So it is a cycle. So somehow or the other, get on this cycle. So again, the point is doing sadhana, which increases the faith. This is the doing, and this is the consciousness. Shraddhavan bhajate omam. Bhajan is sadhana. So then by this process, the love for Krishna will emerge in your heart. By this process, by this iterative cycle, true love for Krishna will emerge in your heart. And he's already loving us. It's not like he doesn't love us, that he will only begin to love us when we do sadhana. Everything that we have, everything that is given to us is already, Krishna is showing his love through that. Even though we have kept ignoring him, still he is giving. You must meditate a little bit to understand how many things had to go right in your life for you to be where you are. And even on a daily basis, so many things have to go right. And so many things have not to go wrong. One little thing can go wrong and the life can be destroyed. So all that Krishna is doing for us, we have to see that Krishna is doing it. We can think, oh, it's just happening automatically. Your children love you. If your children love you, that is Krishna's blessing. There are so many children who don't love their parents or their loved ones. Why pick on children? Any relationship that is there, if there is a good relationship, Krishna has a hand in it. In your very existence, Krishna has a hand. So, and we have been ignoring him. We have not been paying any attention. That is his love, that our life is carrying on in such a nice way. That is Krishna's love. So he's already loving in us so much. Everything that we have is given by him. Just think about it. It's not a matter of chance. So that we must try to reciprocate with Krishna through our Shraddha. That should help to build Shraddha, and we should reciprocate with Krishna with our sadhana. Then Krishna will reciprocate more and the cycle will build. And we will develop pure love for Krishna. So this developing love for Krishna will not come just by reading chapter 7. That is one big point I want to clarify. This love for Krishna will not come just by reading chapter 7. You have to get on this cycle of Shraddha and Bhajan. Shraddha and Bhajan. Then the love for Krishna will emerge, and this cycle will take time. Chapter 7 we will cover in 3-4 weeks, 2-3 weeks, whatever, some weeks. You can read chapter 1 in 2 hours also if you want. But the love for Krishna will only emerge when you do your bhajan with Shraddha. Okay, so let me see in my notes. So that is why some initial Shraddha will be needed to appreciate chapter 7. Otherwise, it will look like Krishna is arrogant. That is why, in fact, this is a big answer to a big question that many people have. And for those who are listening right now and in the future on YouTube or wherever, Krishna says at several points in the Bhagavad Gita that only somebody with faith or Shraddha can understand, which means appreciate these bhakti chapters. This is the reason why. Otherwise, it just remains some theoretical knowledge, and one's own ahankar covers his true understanding of what Krishna is saying, that how loving he is. Our ahankar makes us think Krishna is the one with ahankar. And then we miss the whole point. And we cannot understand chapters, these bhakti chapters. And moreover, not only we don't understand, we commit an offense against Krishna because we say he is ahankari. He is the egoist. He is arrogant. That is an offense to a loving father. And that is why Krishna says that don't explain this knowledge to somebody who is not my devotee. He says that. I will show you in Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 18, after the whole Bhagavad Gita is done, 18.67, he will say this, 67th verse. This confidential knowledge may never be explained to someone who is not austere, nor or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor one who is envious of me. This is the reason. So we have spent about 30 minutes to explain this very deep concept. And therefore, to make the best use of chapter 7 and this whole bhakti section, try to listen to it with some devotion. Even if you don't have it right now, whatever you have, even one grain of one particle of devotion you have in your heart, use that to understand these bhakti chapters. In fact, in the beginning of chapter 9, so chapter 7 is knowledge of the absolute or Krishna. Chapter 9 is a deeper understanding of chapter 7. All right. Chapter 7 is knowledge. Chapter 9, Krishna will focus on the practical aspect that unless you do this, you will not see that everything that I have been saying over the last 20 minutes. In some way, Krishna will say that in chapter 9. And in the very first verse, Krishna says that you must listen to this without envy. Anusuyave. Pravakshyami anusuyave. Anusuyave means to the non-envious. So therefore, these bhakti chapters have to be understood with some initial devotion. That is the main point I am trying to make. So I will write it in big letters, very big letters. These bhakti chapters must be listened or heard or listened with at least.
Cannot say, sir.
Can't see the screen.
Oh.
Yeah, now this one is okay.
At least some bhakti or some shraddha in our heart. Else we will completely miss the point of chapter 7. This is the main message I want to convey. And this is the mood or attitude in which to understand chapter 7. Clear? Okay. So let us start our discussion on chapter 7. So I just want to see my notes and see if I missed anything. And of course, everything that we have learned so far in the first 6 chapters needs to be applied. That was the whole training that we received, Nishkama Karma Yoga, which means giving up the desire for sense gratification, the results of sense gratification, the desire for all the material opulences, ignoring Krishna, everything like that needs to be utilized, controlling the mind, reading the scriptures, the jnana about Krishna, thinking about Krishna, dhyana about Krishna, everything must be used for bhakti. So whatever we have learned in the previous chapters must be used. Okay, so with this background, we will start with 7.1. So 7.1 to 7.3, Lord Krishna is going to explain the sort of the mood or the prerequisites in which to understand chapter 7. Okay. So 7.1. So 7.1 is a very, very important verse. Of course, the first verse, and of course, because it is trying to tell how to set your mood, how to set your approach so that you can understand Krishna. And it is one of the, not one of the, it is the most quoted verse by Srila Prabhupada. In all his lectures, everywhere, the whole thing now with computers and all his lectures and everything have been digitized. Some devotee might have done a search or whatever, and they ranked. I have a ranking of all the verses in Bhagavad Gita that Prabhupada has quoted. This one is at the top. So this verse is very, very, very important. And you will see it's not just because Srila Prabhupada quoted it so much. There's a reason why he quoted it so much. And the reason will become pretty clear as you will see. So, Shri Bhagavan Vacha Mayyasakta Manah Partha Yogam Yunjam Madashrayah Asanshayam Samagram Mam Yatha Gyasyasi Tachrinu. So, the translation is Shri Bhagavan Vacha, first of all. So, unlike some of the other chapters, like chapter 5, chapter 3, and of course the whole of Bhagavad Gita, this chapter is not being prompted by any question by Arjuna. Lord Krishna now directly goes into the Bhakti section and begins to explain Bhakti Yoga to Arjuna. So Lord Krishna is speaking. This is not an answer, so to say. And in a sense, it is an answer because Arjuna has rejected all the other processes towards the end of chapter 6. And now Lord Krishna thinks, yes, Arjuna is now, his mindset is now in the right place. He has come to that point where he can understand bhakti in the best possible way. And therefore Lord Krishna starts speaking. Mai asakta. So now another thing you will see here in this whole bhakti section, and especially in chapter 7, you will see a sudden, now please pay very careful attention, stop multitasking if you are, and all that stuff. This is just way too important to miss this whole discussion on chapter 7, okay? It's more important than how to get rich and how to become a millionaire in stock market. So this is much, much more important discussion than any of those or your latest and greatest movies. So in the Bhakti section, you will see a sudden increase in Lord Krishna in using the word me, because he's going to explain about himself and how to become Krishna Bhakta, and that being the best process. That is the purpose of human life, is to connect with him. So a reference to himself, which means for computer science people, a self-reference, will be just everywhere. I myself counted in the chapter 7 itself, there are about 50 references to Krishna himself, which means to Mai, Mam, Aham, Me. So many words where Krishna will refer to himself, 50 plus. Out of the 30 verses in chapter 7, 28 of them have this word directly. Of course, the other 2 are meaning that itself, but almost every verse, only 20 and 27 don't have it. but they are talking about devotees of Krishna. But every single verse, Krishna is talking about himself. Now, this is where some of you may think, he's talking about himself so much. You know, when you are in a group setting and everybody keeps talking about, if one person keeps always talking about himself, you think he's arrogant. So again, I'm bringing you this to the point. Don't think like that. Please try to understand, take this opportunity to understand who is Krishna directly from Krishna's mouth. Father is trying to tell the son who he is. He is begging, he is calling out to the son to come back to him. He is telling everything about himself, trying to remind him how much he loves his son or his children. So that is Krishna's mood. We should not misunderstand to be that Krishna is arrogant. So many references of me, mai, mam, aham, me, mat, you will see in the first verse, 7.1 itself, there are 3 or 4 references. So again, so mai asakta manah partha. So what is Lord Krishna saying? Mai, to me, asakta. Asakta means attached. Mana, attaching your mind to me. Just now the Dhyana Yoga section has finished, where it was all about mind, controlling the mind. What Krishna is saying now, don't try to control the mind, try to attach it to me. Mai asakta manah partha means Arjuna. So attach your mind to me. Yogam yunjan mad ashrayaha. So perform yoga. Yunjan means to practice. So you must practice yoga. Mad ashraya, second instance of mai or mad, under my shelter, mad ashraya. In my shelter, practice yoga. Yogam yunjan mad ashrayaha. Asamshayam, with asanshaya, free of doubts, no sanshaya, don't have any doubts about me or about this knowledge of how to come to me. No sanshaya. Asamshayam. Samagram mam yatha gyasyasi tat shrunu. So this whole thing is one sentence, that like this, you will know me, maham samagram, in full. If you hear to me, tat shrinu, hearing. So Krishna is saying shrinu. So whatever I am going to say in the 7th chapter and in this whole bhakti section for that matter, you must hear like this, in this mood. In what mood? Mai asakta manah partha, yogam yunjam mad ashraya, asamshayam. In that mood, you must hear. You're following? So hear about me without doubt, taking shelter of me, mad ashraya. Practice what I am saying, yogam yunjan, and attach your mind to me. Then you will samagram mam gyasyasi. Completely you will know me. Okay? Following? So the translation is, my iPad is stuck. Oh. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, that is mad ashraya, with mind attached to me, asakta manah, mai asakta manah, you can know me in full. Samagram mam gyasyasi, free from doubt, asamshayam. That you must hear, shrinu. So this is what Lord Krishna is saying. This is how you have to hear. Now, one of my very, very beloved and respected Shiksha Gurus is Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. And he has explained this. I don't know where he took it from. It is not in the commentaries of the main acharyas whose commentaries are present in the Bhagavad Gita, like Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baladev Vidyabhushan, and Srila Prabhupada. But so I don't know his source, or it is his personal realization, but it is a beautiful realization that I want to share with you. That he has seen a code in this verse. Lord Krishna has embedded a particular code of how to understand him in this verse. And if you see this verse in reverse, if you go backwards, you will see the code. So I will show that to you. So the code is that you must first hear. Tat Shrinu. So hear about Krishna. Okay. The next step is by hearing about Krishna, and you must hear for a long time, for a sustained period. Hear about Krishna from Srimad Bhagavatam, from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and many other scriptures, various Puranas. Hear about Krishna. Then you will, so this is Shrinu. Then you will Jnasyasi Samagram, which means then you will know Krishna in full. Samagram, you will know. Jnasyasi. So by hearing about Krishna over a sustained period of time, you will know him completely. And then all your doubts will go away. Asamshayam. All doubts will go away. This is very, very important prerequisite. We have covered it in the past. Doubts, samshaya, is the killer of Shraddha and Bhakti. There can be so many doubts, very subtle doubts. I also have doubts. That is this really, really true? Or is this some old books from some thousands of years ago, which are saying something? They say good things, but still, is Krishna the author? Really, there is somebody like Krishna? Is it all true? Really? What if I do a little bit of sense gratification? Here or there, I tell a lie. Sometimes when nobody is looking, I go and do something which is not recommended. Maybe, because I am doing so many other things nicely, Krishna will overlook this. Let me be a jerk. And so many other things. Of course, Krishna overlooks. Of course, that part is true. But in our mind, there could be thousands of doubts. Is bhakti the only way? Can I not do it by some other way? Especially in Kali Yuga, I can try. So many people say, Kali Yuga, there is no other way. No, but I'll be the successful one, the one among the billions. I will show it. I will do. It doesn't apply to me. All these doubts. Is there something called moksha? Is that true? Is there a spiritual world? So there can be, so by constantly hearing about Krishna, the doubts slowly, gradually begin to go away. Gradual, it's a gradual process. So then doubts go away or begin to go away or go away to a large extent. The doubts remain till the very end, but they begin to erode. And then when doubts have sufficiently eroded, then we can take ashraya, mad ashraya, which means Krishna's ashraya. Then we take full shelter of Krishna. Full shelter or partial shelter. Shelter also is gradual. Take shelter of Krishna. Then you take shelter. So we started from Shrinu. Then we Gyasyasi Samagram Mam. Then we know Krishna. Then our doubts go away. when our doubts go away, then we can take shelter of Krishna, Mad Ashraya. And when we take shelter of Krishna, in that shelter we can practice our sadhana nicely. With that mood, we can very nicely practice. Now, sadhana practice should begin soon enough. But with complete shelter of Krishna, sadhana can be perfect, nicely or perfectly, I would say. With full shelter of Krishna, our sadhana is perfect. And then when our sadhana is perfect, then our mind becomes fully attached. Mai asakta mana. Our mind becomes fully attached to Krishna so that nothing can take it away. So if you see, this is the 7.1 verse in the reverse order. So of course, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't attach your mind or try to attach your mind to Krishna in the beginning, or begin your bhajan process, Shravanam, Kirtanam, your sadhana process in the beginning. It doesn't have to wait till the 5th stage, till you take complete shelter. This is about the perfect sadhana, and our minds are fully focused on Krishna. Just like the gopis. In the gopis' mind, if you go and open the mind of gopis, you will see nothing but Krishna. Their whole existence is Krishna. Then one can attain that kind of devotion to Krishna, that there is nothing in the mind other than Krishna. So in any way, whichever way you look at it, so again, there is some iteration involved in this as well. There is some iteration involved here as well. Okay, so don't take it like an absolute yardstick. First I must do this, then I must do this, then. Start your sadhana. We have discussed it earlier. Don't wait to start your sadhana. Okay. So that is the discussion on 7.1. These are some of the prerequisites or the criteria or the mood and attitude of in which we must try to hear chapter 7. Okay, so 7.1. Now we come to 7.2. So my goal today is to, if I can cover till 7.3, I will call it a success. Chapter 7, we will go through very carefully. And also a little bit my interest is to go through deeply, carefully, because these lectures are being uploaded to YouTube. They will stay there for a long time. So everybody in the future can also be benefited through this. I myself, may want to, when I forget, I'm a very forgetful person. So whatever preparation I do on a week-to-week basis, and I share it with you, and that is getting recorded, I can revise my preparation through this also. So it helps in that sense because of the recording. Now 7.2. In 7.2, Lord Krishna is saying further how to understand this knowledge. And the understanding part, so how to understand Krishna. So that is the thing that we are discussing, how to understand Krishna. And then Krishna will say who he is. There are two aspects to understanding Krishna. At a theoretical level, at a theoretical level, and then at a practical or a realization level. So how to understand the knowledge about the theory and the knowledge about the practice of Krishna. That is what is being said here. And this is called as Jnana. And this is known as Vijnana. That is the Sanskrit meaning. Jnana and Vijnana. Vijnana means something, the Jnana you take and you apply it and the result is produced as predicted by the jnana, which is exactly what we teach in science classes to children. You make a hypothesis and you do the experiment, you get the result. The result either supports the confirms the hypothesis or does not. If it does not, come up with a different, you go back. If it does, then your hypothesis is correct. So that's a science experiment. That's why in Sanskrit, the science is translated as Vijnana. So when we apply the theoretical knowledge correctly, and if the theoretical knowledge is correct, then it will lead to the stated results. Kindly mute yourself, someone. So that is what is being said in this verse number 7.2. And I will explain some very deep and beautiful details of this as explained by our acharyas. So 7.2 verse. Jnanam te aham sa vijnanam idam vakshyami asheshataha yadgyatva neha bhuyo anyat gyatavyam avashishyate. So Jnanam te aham sa vijnanam. So Sanskrit language, the sentences are constructed a little bit differently than English. Obviously, it's a different language, but Jnanam te aham sa vijnanam, that this jnana or theoretical knowledge and vijnana, I will, aham, to you, te, idam vakshyami, this I will speak. Vakshyami means speak or explain or describe. Asheshataha, shesha means something which ends, ashesha means infinite. What here it means is in full, in a complete way. So what is the translation of the first two lines? Jnanam te aham sa vijnanam idam vakshyami asheshataha. That aham, this is, I will say it how it would have been in English. I will explain to you, aham vakshyami te idam, I will speak to you this jnanam and vijnanam asheshataha, in a complete way. So that is how you would think about this in your, at least that's how I would think about it in my mind. The first two lines. So I'm going to explain, Krishna is saying in full, asheshataha word is very important, and we will see why it is complete knowledge. In these few verses of chapter 7, how can complete knowledge be embedded? And jnana and vijnana, I will explain that. Yad gyatva na iha bhuyo anyat gyatavyam avashishyate. That knowing this, yad gyatva, knowing this, na iha bhuyo anyat, nothing else will remain. Remain is avashishyate. Next line, nothing else will remain to be known. Gyatavyam. So once you know this, nothing else will remain to be known. So this is complete knowledge about Krishna. He will give complete knowledge about himself. So our acharyas, especially Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, has explained that jnana means understanding Krishna's powers. Powers. That how great Krishna is. So this is the, what I was sharing, this will be the 4 to 13 part of the chapter. And Vijnanam means understanding. It is still understanding. It's not realizing yet. Realizing will come from practice. But understanding Krishna's sweetness. And that sweetness is realized when we surrender. So that realization of the sweetness comes when we surrender in love. Again, this is not a forced surrender like an enemy surrenders or a losing party surrenders to the winning party. Not like that. Surrender, or we can say take shelter, take ashraya. So when we take ashraya of Krishna, then we understand Krishna's sweetness. We realize his sweetness, and that is the Vijnana part. The knowledge of how to do that will come in 14 to about 28, 27. There's not a very clear demarcation. For practical purposes, I will just say 14 to 30. So approximately in the second half of the chapter. Okay. So this Vijnanam portion is applicable to those, or not applicable, I will say, is appreciated by those who are devotees or who have taken shelter. Of Krishna. And this Jnana portion is appreciated by those who have not yet taken shelter. But there is a big but. I will write it here because there's no space. But are non-envious. Are non-envious of Krishna. So otherwise, if one is envious of Krishna, none of the 7th chapter will be accessible, will make sense. It will just go like a overhead transmission. One will feel, oh, Krishna is an arrogant person. He cannot be God. God has to be humble. Okay, so if that is the mood, then too bad. So this is the Vijnana section, which is the second half of the chapter, is appreciated by the devotees, and Jnana is appreciated by those who are not devotees yet, but at least they are favorable to Krishna, which means they have some Shraddha. That let us find out. And Krishna will very nicely explain this in the later parts of 7th chapter, that Jnana portion can be understood by somebody who is in 3 categories, and those who have studied Bhagavad Gita already, they will appreciate this little more. In the Jnana portion is appreciated by the Artha and Artharthi category. And the Jnani who is already having the Jnana can appreciate the Vijnana portion. That is the 4th category. And there is a category in the middle called Jigyasu. It is somewhere in the middle. There is some partial Jnana that he has, and that has created more Jigyasa. So he needs to finish his Jnana, then the Vijnana stage will come. So again, this last sentence, if you have not understood, that's okay. It's for those who have already read Bhagavad Gita once. In 7.16, Krishna says, 4 kinds of people come to me. Chaturvidha bhajante mam, artha artharthi, jigyasu, and jnani. So that is what I was talking about. But this is the meaning of Jnana and Vijnana, understanding Krishna's powers and understanding Krishna's sweetness. And 7.14, this verse is a major transition verse. 7.14 in our understanding of Bhagavad Gita as to how we can realize Krishna. The key to realizing Krishna is given in 7.14. It's till that point, it will be considered to be the most important verse encountered in Bhagavad Gita thus far. 7.14 is most important verse till that point. There are many important verses afterwards, but till that point, that is the very, very, very important verse which says how we can see the sweetness or realize the sweetness of Krishna. And Krishna will say there that that is through loving surrender. So we will come to that 7.14 in some due course of time. So that is 7.2. And nothing else shall remain to be known. What is the meaning of this? Nothing else shall remain to be known means that there is no need for any other process. The Nishkama Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and even the impersonal understanding, which is the result of Nishkama Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, of Brahman or Paramatma, none of that, nothing else shall remain to be known. You don't need any of that. A devotee, a bhakta, automatically gets the result of all other processes. In the last verse of chapter 8 of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says this, that a devotee is not bereft of all the other processes. He automatically gets. So bhakti is like a superset. Okay. So I'm looking at my notes and seeing what I need to cover, what I can skip. Okay, so another just one point I want to make sure that is clear is that even, so we said from 4 to 13, there will be the understanding, or I will say knowledge.
We don't see the board.
Sorry. Oh, I didn't skip for all this time. So we said nothing else shall remain to be known. Nishkama, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, impersonal understanding, all that. Sorry. So knowledge about Krishna, that is what is there in 4.13, or the powers of Krishna. Now these are 10 verses. And a point to understand is that all the powers of Krishna is infinite. Krishna is infinite. If we are able to fully explain Krishna, then our mouth or our mind is bigger than Krishna, because our mind has been able to fully explain Krishna. That means Krishna has fit in our mind. So the container is always bigger than the contained, isn't it? If here you have container and you have some, halwa in the container, which is bigger in size, halwa or the container? The container is bigger, isn't it? Only then it can contain something. So if our mind can contain fully Krishna, that means Krishna is finite. Therefore, our minds cannot completely understand Krishna. But just now he said, you will fully understand Krishna. What does that mean? There is a paradox. So the understanding is that we will understand fully, we will get a full understanding at concept level. But details are infinite. So which means that through this concept level understanding, we can get a full idea of who is Krishna. But we may not get all the details about who is Krishna. Every little detail. There are, for example, Krishna's pastimes are infinite. Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta. unlimited pastimes. Even Brahmaji, who has 4 mouths, our Brahma has 4 mouths. Other universes also have Brahma. This is a beautiful story in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Thousands of mouths. Brahmaji says, even if I had infinite number of mouths, I could not speak all the glories of Krishna. Krishna's glories are so many. So Krishna is infinite, but through this chapter, at an idea level, at a concept level, we will get a full understanding. A small example of that, for example, is there in chapter 10. In chapter 10, Arjun asks, so we will come to chapter 10 after some time, but then he gets curious and asks that please let me know all your vibhutis, all your opulences, how to see you in this material world, he asks. And Krishna says that, yes, I will tell you. So let me see where Arjuna is saying. In 16th verses, he is saying, please tell me in detail all your opulences by which you pervade these worlds, the material world. So Arjun wants to know Krishna in the material world, how he looks. Krishna, he says, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only those which are prominent. O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless. If I start telling, there will be no end. And you have to fight a battle here. So I will tell you prominent opulences, because he says here, Na asti anto vistarasya me. Na asti anto vistarasya me. Vistara means, the Hindi word we use is vistar, means the details. Na asti anta, there is no limit. Na asti, there is anta, ending. There is no end to my details. Krishna says, so I will explain to you the pradhana. You will see the word here, pradhana. Pradhanyatah, the main ones. But from the main ones, you can get an idea of everything else, isn't it? Okay. So like that, Krishna is saying that, so the understanding at a concept level will be full, but details are infinite, and that is not possible. Okay, third verse. (7.3). Now Krishna will show a pitfall. The pitfall that we are talking about. If you hear about Krishna, first of all, you may not even hear about Krishna. But if you hear with ahankar, not with shraddha, not without all those characteristics which were mentioned in 7.1. So it's a not of 7.1. The people in computer science or software will understand, not. So if you are the opposite of 7.1, Mai asakta manah partha. So if you're not attached to your mind, na mai asakta, or na mad ashraya, you haven't taken shelter of Krishna. You have samshaya, too many doubts, not a samshaya, but full of samshaya. Like that, then what will happen? You will deviate. And it is very, very hard to have that full dedication or devotion to Krishna. So that is the essence that is coming up here, that do not bring up your own ahankar in this process of understanding, because then there is a very high chance that your ahankar will prevent the proper understanding of how loving Krishna is. Krishna is very, very loving. And if you cannot understand that, then you would miss the point. So therefore, keep your ahankar aside and develop a love for Krishna through sadhana. So let us see what Krishna is going to say about such people. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha. So what does it mean? Manushyanam sahasreshu. Sahasra means thousands. Sahasra is 1,000, 1,000. Sahasreshu means many, many thousands. So Manushyanam, out of many, many Manushya. So this is a clear, it's not Bhutanam. So many places Krishna says Sarva Bhutanam, that he says that I am the friend of all living entities, even the caterpillar or frog or tiger or dog or cat. Krishna is friend of Sarva Bhutanam. There is Bhuta. But Krishna consciousness, first of all, is only possible in Manushyanam. So therefore it is written Manushyanam Sahasreshu, not Sarva Bhutanam Sahasreshu, because cats and dogs cannot perform Krishna consciousness. They cannot understand who is Krishna and how to love Krishna. That is only meant for Manushya. That is one point. Why it is a very subtle point that Acharyas have pointed out why Krishna has used the word Manushyana, not Sarva Bhutanam. Okay, so that is first point. So anyway, out of many thousands of men, men doesn't mean don't feel all the women. It's not a gender discrimination. Manushya means, I said men, but Manushya means human beings. Okay, so Sarveshu, Sahasreshu, sorry. So among thousands of people, Kaschid Yatati Siddhaye. Some people, Kaschid, some people Siddhaye want to go towards Siddhi, something higher than materialism. I am tired with materialism, too much materialism. I want, there's too much pain in this material life. I want to inquire, is there something above materialism? So they try for something that is beyond materialism. Siddhaye, that Siddhaye means for some perfection, something beyond materialism. Siddhanam, sorry, Kaschid Yatati Siddhaye. Yatatam api Siddhanam. Kaschin Mam Veti Tatvataha. So Yatatam, among those Yatatam, so it is said Yatat Kaschid Yatati Siddhaye. Among those who are doing that Yatati, so I will show you. So this is, let's say, all the people who are doing, wanting Siddhi. So they are doing the Yatan or Yatati. Among these, Yatatam api Siddhanam, among this pool that I have drawn here, this pool of people, Kaschin Mam Veti Tatvataha. Very few, some people, the same word Kaschin is used earlier also in the verse. Kaschin Mam Siddhaye. Very few people know Krishna in essence. In essence. Tatvataha. Mam Veti. So again the word Mam is coming. Know me in the essence level and the full essence level. Means the core level. Tatvataha. So very few people. So there is, I did not draw this diagram properly. These are Yatati, and below this is another huge pool of everybody else who are busy in material sense gratification. Very few come to this level of trying to go above sense gratification. And among those very few, still very few are able to know Krishna in full. And the key differentiator is this level. First of all, there is a very big differentiation at this level itself, but I am not going to even talk about that. I am assuming you are above that level. That's why you are here in this class, isn't it? Otherwise, you would be going, sitting Friday evening in a bar or with your friends or watching some movie or whatever. Friday evening, very popular time to have fun. So let us say most of you are above that, many or all of you are above this level. But this differentiation that is there, this one is very, very strong, and our ahankar can prevent us from knowing Krishna. Many will get stuck in the impersonal understanding. For impersonal understanding, your ahankar still needs to go away, but to a very, very last stage, it can stay. Because you think, I, based on my own effort, through my gyan and my dhyan, I will become siddha, I will attain siddhi. I don't need anybody's help. Bhakti is all about begging for Krishna's help. So you have that feeling, I will do it on my own gyan, my own dhyan, my own practices I will do, and I will attain. Why bother about somebody else? This Krishna, and he's just a offender. He's an arrogant person. So making this jump from here to here requires us to put aside our envy of Krishna and take shelter of his feet. And that is where Shraddha comes in. So ahankar, the opposite is Shraddha. Having Shraddha in Bhagavan, to have Shraddha in Bhagavan, we have to keep aside our ahankar and do our sadhana. Even the impersonals do sadhana, there is no doubt. They do very strong sadhana. But the Shraddha in Krishna, they have Shraddha in something else. So Shraddha is a common word. Materialists also have Shraddha. Materialist sense gratification have Shraddha in their bank balance or in whatever else, their strength, beauty, knowledge. So many aspects are there. They can have Shraddha in that. I'm very knowledgeable, I'm very beautiful, I'm very rich, I'm very strong. Or even that sounds a little negative. Some people may have Shraddha in I'm very kind, I'm very kind-hearted, I'm very soft-spoken, I'm very humble. They are also mode of goodness, Shraddha. But going to the next level is going above material aspects, and then yet going above and having Shraddha in Krishna. So here the Shraddha, the topmost Shraddha that we are talking about here is Shraddha in Krishna. And that is a very, very key aspect, which we will elaborate more in 9th chapter. Okay, so let me see my notes and see where we are or what I have missed. So you understand here there are 3 levels. Bottommost level, all the material sense gratification people. Then among those, few try for going above materialism. And among those who try to go above materialism, very few come to Krishna. So this also speaks about the fact that Krishna Bhakti is the topmost among all the other processes because it is rarer. Whatever is rare is higher, isn't it? In general. It is rare to find silver, but it is even rarer to find gold. And it is even more rarer to find diamonds. And that's what make that which is more rarer, more precious. So this is another way to see this is Krishna Bhakti is the rarest because very few people attain it and it is the topmost therefore. So I can see there are like 7 pages of notes that I have on this verse, but I don't think I will go into all the 7 pages of details. But one thing I want to point out among all these pages and pages of notes, I need to condense them. Otherwise, this will be much longer. That you will encounter, for many people, you will encounter others. So there are these 3 levels, right? Materialists, then some form of, I would say, endeavors or
Prabhuji, please move the board.
yeah, sorry, thanks. Some form of yogis, and then finally bhaktas. Okay, let me make it a little bigger. So there are these three levels. Now, these people, if you are in this category of a bhakta, or at least if you are trying to be a bhakta, then these people, some these people may try to pull you down, try to ridicule you, or make fun of you, or tease you, or somehow or the other sort of demotivate. Now, among them, among these people, there will be other people who are following these other forms of yoga. They will make this very, very offensive argument. They will say that karma yoga, jnana yoga, and dhyana yoga. Karma yoga is meant for hardworking people. I'm talking here, these are the arguments that will be given, that karma yoga is meant for hardworking people. I will do karma, my duty I will do perfectly without any attachment. Just do my duty for no reason. I will take $1 salary, just $1 salary, and I will do my duty. So many people say that, $1 salary. Steve Jobs had $1 salary from Apple, and he made Apple into the biggest company for $1. Donald Trump also said, I draw $1 salary. We don't know how much else he profited, but that's a different matter. Jnana yogis will say this is for intellectuals. Dhyan yogis will say that the Dhyan yoga process is for austere people. I'm very austere, doing Dhyan, I can control myself. I don't need to eat that much. I just sleep for 2 hours. I eat little bit, and I'm very austere. But bhakti yoga is for sentimentalists. Sentimentalists, like a little bit of a derogatory term. Oh, you are just, sentimental. Oh, you are just thinking of Krishna and crying all the time. All you know is how to cry. You don't have any guts. You don't have any backbone. I'm hardworking. I'm intellectual. I'm austere. You are just a sentimental fool. You should let them say whatever they are saying. Bhakti yoga is the topmost. Krishna is showing here that among all the yogis who are even trying, yatatam api siddhanam, they are also trying for some siddhi. They are doing yatana. They are trying for siddhi. Kaschin mam veti tattvataha. Those who know me in essence fully are very rare. Therefore, this is the highest. So it's not about sentimentalism at all. It is about love for Krishna. And love has feelings and sentiments. Yes, of course. But here you are developing or trying to develop love for the most supreme person. So what is the problem? So it is not just foolish sentimentalism. It is sentimentalism or feelings, or a better word is love for somebody who is the owner of the whole universe. And that is what Krishna will explain in the next verse onwards. Everything comes from Krishna. And that is the person you are developing love for. That is such a great, audacious goal, not something to be looked down upon. If somebody says that, just ignore them and pray for them that they get some right buddhi, sadbuddhi. That's all. Okay. So that is the discussion on 7.3. So you need to choose where you want to be, whether you want to be in the materialistic level or the yogi level or the bhakti level. It is rare, but it is the most sweet and beautiful. Okay, let us see if there are any questions. So I see somebody is explaining the backwards part of 7.1. That is all thanks to His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Credit must go where it is due. So Subhash Prabhu is asking 7.2 translation, explain phenomenal and numinous. So that is what I explained. I did not use those words. Of course, Srila Prabhupada is using those words. Phenomenal knowledge is jnana or theoretical knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada's English was very advanced or very, sometimes he used complex words. But phenomenal knowledge is theoretical knowledge and numinous knowledge is practical knowledge. And those are the terms I used because that's how I have understood it and it made sense, or like it helped my understanding. So that is phenomenal and numinous. Theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge, practical or realized knowledge. Practical knowledge means knowledge that comes after you practice. That's why it's called practical knowledge. After you practice, the knowledge that comes, or rather the realization that comes, that is Vijnana.
Prabhuji, one more question. Thank you very much for explaining. The Bhakti Yogi can be Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, and Dhyana Yogi also.
What about that?
I am asking, can a Bhakti Yogi be of these three categories also? Hardworking, intellectual, and austere.
Yes. Okay. So your question is, can a Bhakti Yogi be these? Absolutely. And he must.
Yes.
He must. Okay.
Okay. Right.
But you do not have to depend on your own effort. That is the biggest difference. So a Karma Yogi, that means Karma Mishra Bhakti, that you work for Krishna. There are so many devotees, very beautiful devotees, who have spent their whole life just distributing books of Krishna.
Yes.
They go from street to street, handing out books, Bhagavad Gita and other books. So they are working. Okay, instead of selling pan masala or chaat masala, they are selling Krishna's books for a donation. Very, not like selling for a profit.
Yes, yes.
So they are doing work, but they are doing work in the mode of devotion. One who is cleaning the temple of Krishna. Even if you are raising your children so that they become devotees, which is more relevant to people here, that is also doing your work, but with Krishna consciousness. That is why Srila Prabhupada calls this Krishna consciousness. Whatever you do, do it with the consciousness that I am somehow or the other trying to please Krishna, trying to show my love for Krishna. What is the point of raising a child like Kamsa? Kamsa was the son of Ugrasen. What is the point of raising such a child who will become a demon? Or opposite, trying to consciously raise a child who becomes a demon, like Hiranyakashipu tried his best to make Prahlad into a demon. So what is the point? There is no, so that is also action, but to please Krishna means so whatever we are doing it with a consciousness that somehow or the other by this action, Krishna will be happy. If Krishna were to come here and look at me, he will say, yes, you're doing nicely. Like if I enter into my child's room suddenly, if he's nicely, doing his work, then I'm happy. I feel nice. If he's wasting his time, if he's, doing that, I say, what are you doing? You said you will go and do something good and you are just, wasting. So if Krishna were just suddenly to appear, where he's always there, he's always looking, he doesn't have to appear. But anyway, if in our mind, if he suddenly appears, at all times, we should feel that he will say, yes, you're doing good work. Whatever you're doing good work. Nice. you're following in some way or the other, you are engaged in following my instruction. So that is doing action or karma yoga in bhakti. Similarly, jnana, you're reading about Krishna instead of reading some, Hollywood, Bollywood trash. And dhyana means thinking about Krishna, keeping Krishna in our mind and doing our work. So all these can be simultaneously done. Keeping Krishna in our
Prabhuji.
mind.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Mad Mayi asakta manaha, that is keeping Krishna in our mind. That's the first line of the 7th chapter. Mayi asakta manapartha. Yogam yumjam, be engaged, is karma. And then gyasyasi means jnana. But all those are connected to Mam. When that gets connected to Mam or Krishna, that becomes. So in that 7.1 verse, all those three are there. Karma, jnana, and dhyana are there in 7.1. But still it is fully bhakti. All right?
Ji, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam.
Thank you. Okay, then there is next question. Do you recommend leapfrogging from materialistic directly to bhakti without becoming yogi? So there is some terminology that I want to clarify. From materialist to bhakta without becoming yogi. So in this previous chart, when I used the word yogi, bhakta is also a yogi. Yogi means just connecting to something supreme or something superior from our level. That is yoga. Yoga means connection. So, but here in this context, when I meant yogis, I meant the dhyana yogi, jnana yogi, and karma yogi in the pure sense, which means without bhakti. That's what I meant in the context of 7.3, which is that manushyanam sahasreshu. That in that context, I mentioned the aspect that these are the yogis. So yes, absolutely the answer is, so let me put it in a different color, green color. You must go from here to here. Must. There is absolutely, this is not recommended. There is no point. Life is too short. Absolutely too short to waste.
That was
Going from this to these levels. You must go directly to bhakti level, and that is Lord Krishna's recommendation. So I hope that clarifies it.
this.
Yes, and follow up to that question, other qualities will automatically appear. One gets the benefit of all other yogas. In 8th chapter, Lord Krishna says that. Last verse, a person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, which is jnana, performing sacrifices, which is karma, and undergoing austerities, which is dhyana.
Right. That was exactly my thinking.
So the benefits are available for a person who is performing devotional service. There, one is not bereft of the benefits. Okay. Next, what other questions do you? So there's another question. I keep chanting Krishna. Let me post this question because it's sent only to me so that everybody can see it. I keep chanting Krishna in my heart, but found that I don't get attracted towards rituals like Abhishek procedure. Is it due to lack of love towards Krishna? How to build that? So, like Abhishek, so Abhishek procedure means bathing a deity of the Lord. You may have a deity of the Lord and you bathe the deity either with water or with 5 elements is the next higher level, with honey, milk, juice, water, and one more thing. Somebody here. With curd, yes. So these are the 5 elements with which we do bathing ceremony of the Lord, and there can be more elements also added. 8 or 11 elements are also there, but in a simple way you can do with 5 or even just with water. And that's perfectly okay if one is not attracted. Just keep following. We will see later, and there are various ways of doing devotional service. There are 9 processes of devotional service. The topmost, the best 2 are Shravanam and Kirtanam. Shravana and Kirtana. There is another process which is known as Archanam. Archana means the worship, which includes various things like Abhishek, like doing Aarti, like offering Dhoop, etc. to the Lord. So Shravana and Kirtana, and all these processes are equal. They are equally potent. It is not like this is step 1, step 2. It's not like a step ladder. They are all equal. Pick any you want, 1 or more. All are correct. But the easiest and best are Shravanam and Kirtanam, especially for Kali Yuga. So there is, in future, don't be worried that, or don't feel that, why is it that the love or attraction towards Abhishek is not coming? If there is attraction to chanting, absolutely perfect. Do not worry. In due course of time, Krishna will reciprocate. Maybe that is a reciprocation of Krishna. Take it as a reciprocation and just focus on sadhana in one way or the other. And at the right time, Krishna, if he wants to have Abhishek done by your hands, he will generate that desire, that love in your heart. What you must do from your side is to stay connected with sadhana in one way or the other, in one of these 9 processes. The best are Shravana and Kirtana. If you're doing that, that is perfect. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, so we are right on time, 8:29. Any last minute questions? Literally, we have 1 minute. Okay, if no other questions, great. We will end. Is someone saying something?
I just wanted to ask that can we do some kirtan together someday, at least to understand how the vibe is, maybe to start or to end a session, because then that vibe will actually kind of remain inside us and we can do that.
Absolutely, and we plan to start Japa Kirtan during our class soon. Now, in the Bhagavatam classes which we do on Saturdays, also there is a plan to do some Kirtan. This class is a little bit more study oriented, very sort of, but yeah, so we break down all the things that we do between Friday and Saturday class. So yeah, that's a very good point. And we want to put it into practice or give people a taste of what it is to do Kirtan. So we will start our Kirtan process soon in this class through the way of Japa. We keep doing, and please connect with your local ISKCON temple. There is a lot of opportunity for engaging in Kirtan. Just hearing the Kirtan and the taste will slowly develop wherever you are in the world. That is one of the biggest boon that Srila Prabhupada has given, is that in every big major town, you cannot be too far from a temple, especially Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON temple. And Kirtan is a very big focus in all ISKCON temples, absolutely hands down, because that is what was instituted by him. There are other temples which will not have that much focus. The focus may be on whatever, else. So please engage in Kirtan wherever you are, and to get a taste of it. And if you are far away, really far away, say thanks to YouTube. But the only problem is you can very easily get distracted. They keep offering you all these suggestions on the side, and very quickly you are distracted. So if you can avoid that, there is beautiful, beautiful Kirtan on YouTube. So please engage in Kirtan in one way or the other. So thanks for that. Okay, so we will end here. A happy Pongal Sankranti to everyone, and we will
Happy
see you next
Sankranti,
week.
Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Happy Sankranti.
Thank you. We will see you next
Amai
week.
Katal will be.
Jai. Very nice. Haribol.
Very well.
So we will continue with chapter 7 next week. Thank you so
Ji.
much. Hare Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Happy Pongal.
Prabhuji.
Thank you
Hare
so much,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.